Good morning. My name is Bear, bearindependent.com, and I wanted to chat with y'all this morning about some prepper takeaways from the first American Civil War. A couple of caveats. I am not a Civil War historian, not even a little bit. I do have a brother that's quite well versed in this information, and I've been blessed to be able to spend some time chatting with him about it. But I'm not an expert, and I do not intend to be an expert. The next is, these are my observations. These observations have actionable items included in them. And I'm not commanding you to do these things, but I am telling you how I am treating this particular situation, and you may or may not choose to onboard that. The American Civil War, 1860 to 1865, also known as the War of Northern Aggression, very commonly referred to as not a true civil war, but a revolution gone wrong. That being said, 750,000 military personnel died during that conflict. 750,000. 2/3 were from disease. 2/3 were from disease. 500,000 casualties from disease. So what does that mean for us as people who are trying to live a prepared lifestyle and can see the writing on the wall in these United States of America? You need clean water. You need access to lots of clean water. Not just a few cases of bottled water put up in your pantry, but you need a way to capture and store and treat water. You will die without it. And it will not be a good time. It's not an easy way out, we'll just put it that way. You also need meds, not just over-the-counter medicines for knocking down fevers and dealing with sniffles, which is very important, but also your fish might have a cough and you might need some fish antibiotics. Your dogs might be really dehydrated and you need to get some banana bags from your veterinarian for your dog. You need meds. To go with that, I would add, you should probably have some vitamins handy, just to supplement what could be questionable nutrition. And you need sanitation. Sanitation is incredibly important. Not just bleach, which you should have to disinfect solid surfaces and for washing of linens, but perhaps a big old bucket of pool shock so you can make your own bleach, or so forth and so on. So what is it? Sodium hypochlorite ? Also, this is coffee cup 1.5. So please excuse me if my brain is not in high gear at the moment. To which one might say, Bear, why are you making a video for me if your brain's not in high gear? And the answer is because if the muse is singing, she only sings in the mornings. And there's a sweet spot somewhere in between the muse singing and my brain being just slightly less than appropriately caffeinated that allows me to feel comfortable making this type of content for you. So, there were riots. Oh, I'm sorry. Sanitation. Not just bleach and pool shock, but need to have a way to care for wounded, to clean your tools, to clean your cooking utensils, to keep all the things that you come in contact with as well as your own body clean. And the lack of sanitation leads to disease. And remember, 2/3 of all Civil War casualties were from disease. 500,000 people. There were riots over food shortages. In the cities, they couldn't get food on many occasions. I've been saying for a couple of years here, I feel like we're not that far away in the United States of America from a legitimate let them eat cake moment. Well, this happened in the 1860s as well. There was no bread, let them eat cake. So stock up. Stack it to the freaking rafters. Start buying food. If you're still buying food, continue, or if you're already buying food, continue to buy food. Corn, rice, wheat, and beans. We've got videos on all of that in the Prepper Classroom video series. The 7 meals plan. Find 7 meals that your family likes to eat. Put them into rotation in your working pantry or your prepper pantry. Your pantry should be able to hold you for 3 months. Just point blank. I don't have to go to the store for 3 months just utilizing what's in my prepper pantry. I'm sorry, my working pantry, to say nothing of my prepper pantry. But the 7 meals, one example for us is spaghetti and meat sauce. Boil water, dump spaghetti, heat up sauce, done. The 7 meals plan also allows you to take advantage of sales. Remember those things when food used to go on sale? We'll probably be seeing less and less of that as the world continues to circle the drain. However, if pasta is usually $1 a pound and it goes on sale for 50 cents a pound, good deal. Buy 100 of them so that you've got your 2 pounds a week for a year. Okay? So, food is the ultimate weapon. Desperate people do desperate things. And when some soccer mom with a 38 special featherlight decides that she's done watching her kids starve to death for the last 3 days because she can't get food, she doesn't have water, she's losing her ever-loving mind. Yeah. It only adds to the civil unrest that we're already experiencing. Food and the lack thereof is heavily weaponized. You can control populations by controlling the food resources. So as much independent control over your own food resources that you can have, the better, because that means that you subject yourself to less regular and irregular threats. The Department of Homeland Security rolling by with 5 tons filled with pallets of MREs. Thanks, bro, I don't need it. I don't need to be subject to your authority. I don't even need to be involved with you. Or the soccer mom with her 38 special, her little Ruger LCP or whatever that decides you are gonna feed my kids because I can't watch them starve to death. Right? So, stack it to the freaking rafters. General Sherman ransacked the Southern populace to weaken support of the Confederate Army. He was destroying their supply lines and the infrastructure that supported the Confederate Army. And he, rather than following the roads and railways, decided, you know what, we're gonna take a hard turn, head to Atlanta, go right through the countryside and destroy everything. Grazing the Army's animals in people's hay fields, eating all of the food that they could find, because he was denying his enemy, the Confederates, those resources. And he was also breaking the will of the people who were supplying those resources to the Confederate Army. Now he gets to Atlanta, Siege of Atlanta happens. That's a whole nother story for another time. But the point is that even folks like myself out here in the middle of nowhere aren't necessarily going to be free and clear of ramifications of a conflict like this, which is another point we'll get to in a moment. However, the likelihood of it happening here is lower than in more population dense areas. But we have to understand that the fight might come to you. The fight might come to me. If so, you need to have some plans in place. You need to be ready to run, hide, or fight. And I can't tell you which is the best for you, what should be your primary, what should be your secondary, what should be your tertiary plan. I can't tell you that because I don't know. I don't know you and your circumstances and where you live. And I'm not going to tell you mine because, you know, it'd be a little obsequious to be sharing that with tens, hundreds of thousands of people. Not the best idea in the world. But you need to have a plan. You also need to have your own independent resources that if an invading army, yes, literally, possibly that, an invading army or some facsimile of that shows up and starts ransacking the countryside, if you have stuff put back, yes, It's an egregious loss to have your fields plucked clean. But if you've still got food hanging in the larder, if you've still got cans stacked up in the pantry, if you have alternate locations that are just absolutely plumb stock full of calories and resources, fuel, water, shelter, clothing, ammunition, firearms, so forth and so on, it allows you to be able to absorb that blow and not be out of the fight. Something to think about. That, of course, gets into spider points and prepositioned caches. The reconstruction, and by the way, this is probably going to be a fairly long video. The reconstruction after the war is profitable to the big they. Who's they? I don't know. The reptilian overlords that are trying to harvest your freaking kidneys for adrenochrome, the Council on Foreign Relations, the 300, the Illuminati, I don't know. Call them whatever the hell you want to call them. Reconstruction is good for them because it's the Hegelian dialectic. They create the problem, they fund both sides of the problem, and the synthesis, you have thesis, antithesis, synthesis. When those two things come together, they control the middle. The answer to all those problems, they've already war-gamed out, and it will be profitable to them. I feel the reason that this is relative right now is because of the Great Reset that's coming. We've been talking about for 7 or 8 months at this channel the idea that COVID-19 has been used to reset the world's economy. Did it start that way? I don't believe so, but I think that it has become a very convenient excuse to press reset on the world's economy. Believe me, whatever comes next will be sanctioned and approved by they. The North, it's talking about back to the American Civil War, the North militarily occupied the South to enforce Reconstruction, they, the Great Reset. However, they could only hold cities and towns. They had a very hard time controlling the countryside. The countryside resisted, and there were different facets of that resistance that popped up. One, the most famous of which is probably the Klan. Those effing racist a-holes, of which, to be perfectly clear, I am in no way a fan. And if you find yourself in any way aligned with their values and ethics, please walk to the top of a tall building and throw yourself off of it. Are we clear? Good. And also gangs like the Bald Knobbers, which is just a hella funny name, the Bald Knobbers. I'm having a hard time taking you seriously, Cletus. Your name is the Bald Knobbers, really? But anyway, there were these pockets of resistance in the countryside, and in some cases, those pockets of resistance grew to such power that they became the de facto legal, political, military force in the countryside because the actual governing bodies were centered in the cities, and they didn't have the resources to go out into the countryside and try and rule and subdue this. Okay? And no, this is not a green screen. That's real. Let's see. Here's my wife's shooting muffs from the other day. Not a green screen. So, there will be pockets of resistance. Depending on where you are, you may want to start thinking now about what those pockets of resistance look like. You should know your local sheriff. And if your local sheriff is a good man or a good woman, you should be in touch with those people and be aligned with them. If you have not already formed groups, you definitely should form groups of competent individuals so that you get a vote about how things are going to go out here in the countryside. You need to be able to defend yourself. Just point blank. You need to be able to defend yourself. That if a group of people decides that they are going to come to your location and enact their will upon you, you get a vote. We shall not go quietly into that dark night. But I digress. You need to know how to defend yourself. You need groups of people now, working competently together now towards a common good, so that if/when things go sideways, you're not trying to put together your super ultra tactical high-speed mutual assistance group, American Ranger, spaceship, door gunner, Navy SEAL, alpha numerical, blah, 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 blah crew. You already know each other. You already love each other. You're already spending time together. All the cool guy stuff in the world cannot make up for competency or unit cohesion. Let me repeat that. All the cool guy stuff in the world cannot make up for competency and unit cohesion. So start getting competent now. Start getting cohesive now. That if things go sideways where you are, or these factions pop up, you get a vote. I would much rather be able to act than be acted upon. To that point, entire cities and towns were turned into internment camps to rout out sympathizers, Confederate sympathizers in the South. The army would encircle the town and just cut it off. And then they would watch and see who did what. Well, that's only really an issue if you're in towns or cities. So the question is, how long can you stay at home in your town or in your city? How long before you have to go to the store in your town or in your city? For me out here, how long can I stay here before I have to go into town or go into the city to get something? And what is your evacuation plan if you're in the towns, if you're in the cities, so that you don't become encircled and ensnared by an overwhelming military force? What are your bug out indicators? Again, this is all covered in the Prepper Classroom series, free here on YouTube. Bug out indicators and bug out plans, in addition to 40 some other topics, line by line by line, laid out in a whiteboard format. When are you going to leave? Where are you going to go? What are you taking? Who are you taking? How are you getting there? How long are you staying there? How many resources do you have pre-positioned there where you are at? What is your commo plan? Have you ever actually convoyed before? Have you done your area study so that you know who you're dealing with, where you will expect to be dealing with them, and how you expect to be dealing with them? What is the local political military governance in that area? Who are the factions in your area? The Klan and the Bald Knobbers. It's much more involved than I'm going to grab my bug out bag and go. And the more seriously you take it, the higher success rate you're likely to have. Military prison camps like Camp Sumter, also known as Andersonville, led to the internment and death of tens of thousands of soldiers, predominantly, again, from disease. There is the real potential for atrocities if whatever is coming next gets real serious. We need to be prepared for that. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually prepared for that. I'll tell you point blank, none of this stuff we've talked about thus far does not matter if you don't have a personal relationship with your Savior. And I'll just leave it at that because this is not that video. But a life should be worth living. We should be perpetuating a high quality life, not just one that is lost amongst the shadows. So, if you're out there stranded, please come home again. The Father loves you. Now, we need to harden up. Yeah, things can get hard. They will very likely get harder than they have ever been in our lifetime. Our children need to harden up. We need to be ready here, and here for hard times. All the while praying and working diligently, because hope is not a strategy. All the time praying and working diligently to do our best to make sure that hard times do not come. Because if there will be trouble, please, Father God, let it be in my day, not my son's day. Supply lines, rivers, and railways were hotly contested. They are 100% fundamental to the operations of ground warfare. You got to be able to move the people and the stuff. Which begs the question, do you have your own supply lines? Can you move your people and your stuff? How close are you to high value supply lines so that they can move their people and their stuff? Because remember, we want to act, not be acted upon. You don't want to be right next to a major railhead. You don't want to be right on the river. You don't, potentially. These are at least things to be considered. Supply lines are absolutely key. And do you have your own supply lines? Can you control your own production? Can you make the things or barter with your neighbors for the things that you're gonna need? And I'm talking a long-term scenario here, not a 6-week hiccup. I'm talking 5 years of hardcore national distress, which, get it out of your head that that can't happen, because it's already happened here between 1860 and 1865, okay? It's entirely possible. Wars cost money. That money, requirement for that money, leads to borrowing. That borrowing creates debt, lots of it. During the First Civil War, wages did not keep up with inflation, meaning that you needed more money to live than you were earning. Let's say a loaf of bread used to cost $2 and now it costs $5, and you make $10 an hour and you still make $10 an hour. Where's that extra $3 for that loaf of bread coming from? See? Scarcity. It's a problem. So money could potentially in the near future be worth less or worthless. I'm not a financial advisor. However, I would strongly recommend you get out of debt now, especially secured debt. There were massive land seizures during the Great Depression, massive land seizures during the Civil War, because land has inherent value. People don't care that if you financed the rims on your hoopty for $1,000, very low chance that those are repoed for that $1,000 in value for your sweet rims. However, land has inherent value. They're not making any more of it. And getting back to resources and supply lines, certain land is incredibly valuable. So get out of debt if you can. You should be building infrastructure to help you maintain that independence from the system, whether this is rainwater catchment or a composting toilet or an outhouse or a barn for your livestock. You see, we may very well be at the end of an empirical phase for the United States of America. The end phase is decline and decay and war. Sir John Glubb, Fate of Empires. The beginning phase of the next empire is construction and growth. I would strongly encourage you to short circuit that cycle and move right to the construction and growth phase so that you can get your butt in gear and be less subjected to the macro decay so that you have a micro growth and expansion. Okay, so build infrastructure, put your money into things tangible things that matter, and learn skills and build groups now so that you can build resiliency. Because even if you make something wonderful, you need to be able to keep it. Okay, and of course, all these people that you have, you need a way to feed them. So please spin up your agriculture. Our food storage just gets us from now to when we have our first harvest. Okay, so be thinking about all of these things, please and thank you. A lot of this information is covered in much greater depth in our Prepper Classroom series here on YouTube. There's a free playlist here on YouTube called the Prepper Classroom. In addition to that, at Bear Independent, you can get the Prepper Notebook, and you can also sign up for the online course that goes with that Prepper Classroom that will walk you through each lesson step by step, should you be so inclined. Shout out to our patrons. We love y'all, appreciate y'all. Could not do it without you. Click the baby bear if you'd like to support the show. Also, if you're new here, please like, subscribe, and share. That helps us greatly in our ongoing battle against the YouTube algorithmic robots. Shalom, y'all. Stay blessed.